Okay, we'd like to call the Traffic Commission to order. If I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. First item on the agenda is to replace existing handicap crossing and forklift signs on Industrial Avenue. Scott Morgan with Hendrickson requests to replace existing handicap crossing and forklift signs on Industrial Avenue with solar-powered blinking signs. Hendrickson will purchase the new signs. This request is to improve pedestrian safety and forklift access across the street on Industrial Avenue. There is signage there already. They just want to replace it with signage. My understanding is it's similar to the crosswalk signage on Norway by Dakota Wesleyan University.
Oh, okay.
They are here if you'd like to.
It says handicap signs, but it's not handicap. It's just pedestrian crossing and forklift crossing signs. There's two of each out there now. We just want to put the signage that has the lights around them just to bring more attention to what's going on around there. There's a lot more traffic nowadays with the soccer complex. We just want to bring a little more awareness to foot traffic and forklift traffic.
This is where you guys go back and forth?
Yep, across the street.
On the buildings and
Yep.
stuff out there?
Yeah, and we have walkways painted on the
Yep.
street.
Yep.
So we have pretty good signage, but we'd just like to bring a little more attention to it,
Okay.
make it safer.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Second item on the agenda, Tour de Corn requests street and parking lot closures. Tour de Corn Committee requests to block off the west portion of City Hall parking lot and adjacent street, blocking the 100 block of East 7th on Saturday, August 17th, 2019, from 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. for registration and the start of the Tour de Corn ride. Closure will be done at 3:30 a.m. This is a repeat event for us. Tour de Corn is an annual event.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 3 is one of 2 parade permit requests from Tour de Corn. Tour de Corn Committee requests a parade permit August 17th, 2019 at 8 a.m. for a police escort and traffic control at 12th and 23rd and Main. This is, again, an annual event for us. We usually do one parade permit, but they're asking for a second one that we'll get to in a moment.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item 4, Tour de Corn requests a second parade permit. Tour de Corn Committee requests a second parade permit August 17th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m. for a police escort and traffic control at 12th and 23rd and Main.
And this is because the two different start times?
Two
for the
different start times.
Different distances?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next on the agenda, Corn Palace Festival Committee requests street and parking lot closures. Corn Palace Festival Committee is requesting the following street and parking lot closures for Corn Palace Festival. North Main Street from 5th to halfway between 8th and 9th Street on Main. That is before the TMA driveway. The Corn Palace Festival Committee also requests the half block west on the 100 block of 6th, 7th, and 8th Street, and the entire 100 block east on 7th on Tuesday, August 20th at 4:30 a.m. until Monday, August 26th at 4:30 a.m. They would like to allow overnight camping from 3:30 p.m. Monday, August 19th to noon on Monday, August 26th for the Gold Star Amusement box office and administrative offices at the north half of the City Hall parking lot. Additionally, they would like the Corn Palace Festival Committee request the closure of 5th and Main parking lot, the Corn Palace Plaza parking lot, the remainder of the City Hall lot, the Corn Palace parking lot, the Act Theater parking lot, leaving room for them to load and unload through the north part of their lot from 4:30 on Tuesday, August 20th to 4:30 on Monday, August 26th. Festival Committee will request 3/4 of the parking lot from east to west of the Slumberland lot and 3/4 of the parking lot from west to east of the TMA parking lot from 4:30 a.m. on Tuesday, August 20th to 4:30 a.m. on Monday, August 26th. Additionally, they'd like to have allowed overnight camping in the Disco parking lot located 800 North Lawler for carnival workers from Sunday evening, August 18th to noon on Monday, August 26th. Was added.
That'd be the same place they always are,
They are changing it and moving it farther north.
farther north.
Yeah, this is a new footprint for what they wanted to move the festival further north.
The campers.
The campers, the same place?
That's what I mean.
Yes, the campers in the disco lot would be the same area.
Okay.
Thank you for the map.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 6, request to close the alley. Tessiers is requesting the closure of the alley located at the north edge of their property between First and Second Avenue and between Lawler and Kimball for their 100th anniversary celebration. Closure is requested from 10 a.m. on July 24th until 9 p.m. on July 25th. Reason for the closure is they're going to be erecting a tent back there that'll be coming in the day ahead.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Can I get a motion to adjourn Traffic Commission?
So moved.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Allegiance. Invocation, Assembly of God.
Good evening, everyone. Pastor John from Assembly is helping with youth camp this week. So I'm Dan Zebarth with Mitchell Wesleyan and honored to lead us in prayer tonight. Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we're now in the thick of the summer, and I thank you for the change of pace. I thank you that a lot of us get to take vacations during this time, but this is still very important. God, I know that some of the most important work and some of the most important decisions are made during this time, and none of us can predict the future, so we need your wisdom. So God, my prayer for us is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. Help us trust you with all our heart. Help us lean not on our own understanding. Help us in all of our ways acknowledge you, defer to you, submit to you, and I know, Lord, you will make our paths straight. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
McCardle,
Here.
Gosher, Barrington, Allen,
Here.
Charts. Here. Smith,
Here.
Sabers,
Here.
Rice.
Here.
We have a quorum. To start with, I'd like to remove item number 28, and in its place, we will be adding an executive session in accordance with South Dakota Codified Law 125-23, legal. The reason we're pulling item 28 is we've come across some additional information that we want to digest before we do anything further with it. 29. Oh, is it? 28 on mine. Let me go to the other one. Okay, it's 29 on this one. I was on a previous agenda, my fault, sorry. 29 is being removed. Okay. Approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Is there anything you wish to remove? Discussion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Charks,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion?
Did Sub Finance want to make comment on the first and second penny and third penny sales? We're kind of doing a roller up and down and up and down. I'm hoping that maybe we rebound a little next month, but not sure on the first and second penny.
Yeah. Through the second quarter of 2019, first and second penny sales tax is down 2.51% through the same period from last year. And entertainment tax or third penny is up 7.25% compared to the same period last year. So it has been going up and down, and hopefully it changes course and stays up.
Okay. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Allen.
Aye.
Charts. Aye. Smith.
Aye.
Severs. Aye. Rice.
Aye.
Dosher.
Aye.
McCardle.
Aye.
Motion carries. Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor, members of city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium and state your name and your concern. Presentations will be limited to 3 minutes. Items will be given consideration, but no action will be taken at this time. I'd like to start off by saying Mr. Don Louder approached me about Mitchell becoming a Purple Heart city. And after discussion with him and some others from the Order of the Purple Heart, I have agreed that we will make Mitchell a Purple Heart city, and I have a proclamation as such. Whereas the city of Mitchell and the state of South Dakota has great admiration and the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served their country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas veterans have paid the high price of freedom by leaving their families and communities and placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of, did this go off? Am I still on? Okay, sorry. Whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women from the Mitchell area who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and the way of life enjoyed by our citizens. And whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration in present use and was initially created as the badge of military merit by General George Washington in 1782. And whereas the Purple Heart was the first American Service Award or decoration made available to the common soldier and is specifically awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces who have been wounded or paid the ultimate sacrifice in combat with a declared enemy of the United States. And whereas the mission of the Military Order of the Purple Heart is to foster an environment of goodwill among combat wounded veterans and their families, promote patriotism, support legislative initiatives, and most importantly, make sure that we never forget. And whereas the city of Mitchell has a large, highly decorated veteran population, including Purple Heart recipients, and whereas Mitchell appreciates the sacrifice of our Purple Heart recipients made in defending our freedoms and believe it is important that we acknowledge them for their courage and show them honor and support they have earned. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Bob Everson, Mayor of the City of Mitchell, do hereby proclaim the City of Mitchell as a Purple Heart City and encourage the citizens of the City of Mitchell to show their support and appreciation for the sacrifices of the Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, to acknowledge their courage, and to show them the honor and support they have earned. In witness whereof, I have hereunto placed my hand and caused the seal of the City of Mitchell to be affixed this 15th day of July, 2019. Would you like to say anything?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Ken Tunison with the Military Order of the Purple Heart for North Dakota and South Dakota, and I congratulate you on this proclamation. I will order the Purple Heart City signs tomorrow morning. If you give me an email address, I can show you what a draft is going to look like. And again, I thank you for supporting the Military Order of the Purple Heart and the veterans in the Mitchell area. It's just not the Purple Heart that we like to show affection to or show remembrance of, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your service.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Don Loudner, the National Commander of the American Indian Veterans, sir.
It's an honor to come in front of my leaders of Mitchell. We waited and we waited, and we should have had some more veterans here. We told them we were going to read the proclamation today, but we'll see that we get the other backers. We got backers from all four of the veterans organizations at Mitchell. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anything further on citizens input?
Mayor, I was going to, obviously, farmers didn't get a lot of their crops in this year, and I've had some questions about our corn for the Corn Palace, so I was wondering if maybe Scott wanted to just kind of give a little bit of an update of where the progress, or hopefully there is.
Mr. Schmidt?
I went back and looked at my emails, and on May 16th, it was a Thursday, we got 5 colors planted on tiled ground. Our farmer did change the location that he was growing it so we could get it on tiled ground. But 5 colors, black, calico, white, flag red, and dark brown were all planted May 16th, and the other 8 were planted about 2 to 2.5 weeks later. But we did discuss what colors should be planted. We went through the murals that were going to be on, front of the Corn Palace, and then the big one on the south side. So those 5 colors should allow us to get through most of those first 3 to 4 murals, which are all 10 to 14 working days apiece. So we should be timed out all right. The rye is a little bit behind. Went out and checked it out on Friday, and it was a little green. Normally we do have the rye harvested by now, but due to some fear of combustion, we don't want to bundle it and then let it sit. So we may be a little bit behind on rye, but looking good on corn.
I will bring up one more thing. Yesterday, the crew, or several members of the crew of the USS South Dakota, visited Mitchell and the Corn Palace. We were presented with the first flag that was flown over the USS South Dakota when it was commissioned. So that will be on, it's in my office right now, but it will be on display as planned at the Corn Palace. So I got to meet the commander of the boat and the chief of the boat, so as well as numerous sailors. Very nice. They're actually riding across South Dakota on motorcycles to promote this, and then the Harley Davidson that was commemorative for the USS South Dakota will be placed in the Harley Davidson Hall of Fame out in Sturgis for any service member to ride if they're out there and they want to ride it.
So how did we get so lucky that we got the flag?
Well, they're presenting various things. I guess we were the first stop. Lucky to be number 1, I guess. Anything else? Okay, committee reports. Traffic.
Traffic Commission met this evening at 6 p.m. with 6 items on the agenda. First item on the agenda was to replace existing signage, crosswalk and forklift signs on Industrial Avenue for Hendricks and Turner. They want to replace existing signs with lighted signs that they would be purchasing and paying for. That was approved by Traffic Commission. Second item on our agenda was from Tour de Corn to request street and parking lot closures for their annual Tour de Corn ride. They would be requesting blocking off the west portion of City Hall lot and the adjacent street, 100 block of East 7th on Saturday, August 17th from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. for registration at the start of the ride. That was approved. Item 3 and 4 were 2 parade permits requested by Tour de Corn. The first being the parade permit, August 17th, 2019, 8 a.m. for police escort and traffic control at 12th and 23rd Street. That approved. The next permit for them for the same date at 9:30 a.m. Same traffic control positions at 12th and 23rd for their second group of riders that would be leaving. That was approved. Item 5, would the council and mayor like me to read that in its entirety? It's rather lengthy.
No.
Okay. Corn Palace Festival requested the closure of the streets and parking lots that they're going to need for the Corn Palace Festival, the overnight camping for the office and ticket booth, and also the carnival workers for this year's Corn Palace Festival. That was approved by Traffic Commission. Item number 6, request to close the alley by Tessiers, located directly north of their building between 1st and 2nd, and Lawler and Kimball for their 100th anniversary celebration. That was approved by council. Traffic Commission adjourned at 6:06 p.m.
Mr. Johnson, do we have to wait a week or a meeting to approve these minutes, or is it okay to?
State law says that you're supposed to wait and approve. Well, this is a Traffic Commission item,
Right.
Traffic Commission should be able to approve that by itself.
Okay, thank you.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address any of these? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing and action on the application of the back 40 for a retail on-off sale malt beverage license located at 511 North Main, Mitchell, South Dakota. Video lottery is not included.
Mayor and Council, Public Safety would have no opposition to this.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve quote for bi-yearly scrap iron. Mr. Roth.
There was two quotes sent out, one to Petrick, one to H&R Salvage. The only one we got back for this half year was from Petrick for the $50 per ton for scrap iron. That's from the street shop and out at the landfill. H&R. Did I say Petrick? H&R.
Do they give you a roll-off?
Yes, they're required to furnish roll-offs, one at each location. Then they just pick them up when we call them.
Entertain a motion.
Just second, but
Motion by
question, have we had more than one bid in the past?
Usually, Petrick will supply a bid too. They kind of go back and forth a little bit. In the past, it mostly has just been H&R in the past.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Saber, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Action to award bid for waste tire collection and disposal project 2019-44. Is that you again?
Yep.
Fire away.
July 9th, 2019 at 1:30 PM, City Hall Council Chambers. The bids for the waste tire collection disposal grant were opened. We had two bidders. Liberty Tire Service out of Savage, Minnesota was the low bidder at $192 per ton. The other bidder was New Deal Tire, Bismarck, North Dakota. They were at $200 a ton. And they're both real good prices. Currently, without the grant, we pay $200 a ton to dispose of tires. The state was actually expecting about $225 a ton. So either way, these are both good prices, but we recommend Liberty Tire for $192 a ton.
Move to award Liberty Tire.
Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mrs. Jarks. Further discussion? Does anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Board of Adjustment, entertain a motion for the City Council to recess and sit as the Board of Adjustment. Motion by Mr. Ace.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCardle. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Action to set date for Board of Adjustment hearing 8/5/2019. Patricia Reimnitz has applied for backyard variance of 20 feet versus 25 feet to construct an attached entryway from the house to the garage at her home located at 204 West 13th. Legally describes Lot 11, Block 15, Capital Edition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property is zoned R2, single family.
Move to set the date?
Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mrs. Jarks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 8/5/2019. GCVW Revocable Trust and Haley Marcourt have applied for a conditional use permit to operate a family residential child care center and/or child care center preschool and nursery business at the property located at 1525 South Miller Street, legally described as the south 115 feet, of Lot 16D, excluding west 25 feet of Block 16, Sunnyside Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property zoned R2, single-family residence. Motion by Mr. Smith. Second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? Does anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 8/5/2019. Dan Tria Sonny has made an application for conditional use permit to operate a family residential child care center in her home located at 817 West Douglas Avenue, legally described as the 75 feet of lots 11 and 12, Block 5, Van Epps, Second Edition. City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property is owned R2, single-family residential.
Set the date.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Does anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Carried in action on Michelle Hanton, 1104 West Havens. Michelle Hanton has applied for conditional use permit to operate an animal hospital, clinic, boarding, and shelter located at 1104 West Havens, legally described as irregular track 6, excluding lot right-of-way 6, and irregular track 8, excluding right-of-way 8, platted various in the southwest quarter of Section 21, Township 103 North, Range 60 West, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property is zoned highway business.
Mayor and council members, the Planning Commission held a hearing on this request at their last regular meeting and did recommend approval of the conditional use with one condition, that there be no veterinary activities be conducted on the property.
And I think really all she's planning is boarding anyway, correct?
She's here. I'll let her speak for her.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Hanton. My goal is to train and have a training facility to work with individuals with their pets and their dogs to make sure that they can have a good outcome for them. I work with Big Paws Canine Center out of Sioux Falls for service dogs for vets, and I am a satellite trainer for them. So that would make that a lot easier for me to have access to work with them individually in and around in our surrounding area. We just tested for Therapy Dog International, which is a foundation that we can take pets in to visit in the hospitals, nursing homes, schools. Their program allows these individuals that have tested to have insurance with their handler and their dog. We had 10 individuals besides myself that tested. 5 dogs passed, so it's very stringent and testing that goes on. But we have enough dogs now that we can start our own chapter in our area also. So I'm excited to have that stuff go on. But there will be no veterinarian. I will recommend them to our already existing veterinarians. I come from Creekside. We outgrew the space that Creekside had available for me to do the training in there. So they encouraged me to move on and seek out my own. So that's where I'm at.
How many dogs would you have and be training at one time, and how long does it take for like a service dog training?
Service dog training can take up to 2 years. It depends, but we train the individuals with their dogs, so we work with them together. There is some overnight where they come in and they stay with me, and we work on certain obedience and demeanors, but it just depends on the activity and what happens. So the boarding would be the training dogs that would be coming in if they would have issues. I would also, if they have a situation, say that they are hospitalized or something like that where they can't have the dog with them, I want to make sure that they're in the proper hands, that they're not just in a lodging facility where these dogs are used to being with somebody. So I want to make sure that they have a place for them too.
And how many would you be able to board or have at one time at this facility?
Right now, the tops we're looking at would be 20, but there again, everything is indoors except for the potty area that will be solid fencing to keep the noise down, because what they can't see on the outside is going to make that a lot more quiet.
I guess one other question there was in the notes and stuff, there was a comment about waste disposal. Has that been addressed
Yep,
appropriately?
we talked with John after the meeting on the that we had last time. The kennel system that we have is an above ground kennel system, so it's not going to set flush to the floor. It has its own drain system, so we can have our own drainage.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen,
Second.
second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion?
With the condition.
Yeah, with conditions set forth by the planning commission.
Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address this one? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Hearing in action for Amanda Nava, 516 West 10th Avenue. Amanda Nava has applied for conditional use permit to operate a family residential child care center in her home at 516 West 10th Avenue, legally described as Lot 8, Block 39, Capital Edition. City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property is zoned R2, single-family residence.
Mayor and council members, the planning commission held a hearing at their last regular meeting and did recommend approval with 3 conditions. One is that you pass a fire inspection. 2, that this permit is not transferable. And 3, that if she ceases operation for a period of 6 months or longer, then she'd have to reapply. Don't know if she's here. If you have, oh, she is here. If you have questions, or if there's anybody else who wishes to comment.
I did have a meeting set up this morning with the fire marshal, but he had to postpone on me because there was a structure fire, which is totally understandable. Things happen. So whenever he is available, I will be home so he could come and take a look. I do have fire hydrants in the house, one upstairs, one downstairs, and the kids would play downstairs, and we do have a side door for a case of emergencies, and my daughter's bedroom is also downstairs. So we do have an egress window in her bedroom.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mrs. Charks with the conditions.
With conditions.
With conditions. Okay. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Reconvene in City Council. Entertain a motion for the Board of Adjustment to adjourn the City Council to reconvene in regular session. Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve implementation of single stream recycling collection and process of recyclables. Mr. Croce.
Mr. Mayor and Council, wanted to go over some of the background and then go shortly through the outline if I could. Earlier this year, we reviewed the existing contract that the city has with private contractor, which ends in December. Started discussions on single stream and curbside sort and the benefits and negatives of both. We followed with a presentation from Millennium Recycling, which provided data on recycling projects, companies that are receivers of those products, and benefits to the landfill. So our conclusion was that the city wants to participate in recycling and continue with a recycling program. Before we went on to the next step in the process of an RFP, we wanted to have council consider a city municipal recycling program, which is outlined and provided in your packet. So a couple of highlights on that. We did the estimate on what the costs and capital investments would be on the city providing that program and investment. We took a 30% grant funding estimate based on what District 3 had provided and what Yankton had received in 2017. We also provided operating costs for consideration. Some of the, again, benefits for the city having a recycling operation is that we have established accounts through the garbage routes for single-family residents. We do not have interest in commercial accounts, nor would we seek that. This is strictly to start with the single-family collection. Doing a quick calculation as it stands for the operating costs, the revenue that we received, we would look at a payback of just over 7 years for the capital investment. If funds would be increased, we would look to have a payback of just over 4 years, if that was possible. And that would be considered by the council at a later date. Some other issues that we would cooperate with the different partnerships, the school district, DWU, downtowns and downtown commercial businesses and the private companies that collect recyclables as well. This is a program that would be a cooperation effort based on what would be received at the landfill and hopefully a reduction at the landfill and an increase in recycling at the transfer station. Additionally, we provided information on the recycling carts, the roll-off carts. We would look to do 90-gallon containers. We would probably start with maybe 25, as much as 25% for 60-gallon for residents as well that needed a smaller container, but we would look toward the majority being the 90-gallon roll-off container, roll-out container with a lid. The city collection staff would utilize the curb tender. We would have a transfer station, and again, utilize the grant funding that was available. 2 personnel would be utilized just for recycling positions. They would be identified for recycling only, and they would be tied to those to that program. A recommendation for capital investment by the city would be, again, the benefit is the investment over 4 to 7 years is actually owning a facility, owning the products versus paying out an estimated $300,000 to $335,000 a year to a contract. After 3 years, that would be a payout of $1 million with no investment. So the economics favor a municipal operated recycling program. That's all I have. Again, the benefits, I think, for ownership is the service that the city provides, again, with trash. We're in the business. We can look at recycling as an extension of that service. And ownership allows us to make changes. If there are changes needed by the residents or the council, it's easier to change with that ownership versus enforcing a contract or having a contract be flexible. Again, there's maturing the recycling program outline as well. We're looking really at increasing the participation. We feel that we can get that. Yankton over the 3 years has gone from 25% to over 55%, and we think we can get there as well. We would want to continue that cooperative effort with the school board, the residents, obviously, DW, Millennium, the county, the surrounding communities, and the private companies in town.
We did meet with Petrick as well as Miedema, and they are very supportive of us doing this. Mr. Miedema thought it was about time we decided to go this route. So,
We also have representatives from Millennium as well. That would be our partner in moving those recyclables. We have members from DW. If there are any questions on recycling, it might be good to hear their opinion as well and how they would participate with the city.
is there anybody that wants to speak to any of this? Don't everybody jump up at once now.
I guess I would just ask if there are any questions about any of this first before I look to address anything.
Okay.
Well, I'd be interested in the partnership. I would be interested to know what the partnership that we're taking a look at and what your role would be.
I'll speak to that before Brian does, but initially we want to hold community outreach programs and actually a community meeting to have the residents come here and actually come to DW and talk with us, talk with the trash provider or trash collectors as well, and Millennium, kind of get a panel together. That's the first step. We'd also like to partner with them as far as the education program throughout the recycling. So sometimes it's difficult to understand what is able to be collected, what is not. We would ask them to participate in that education program as well, and as well as have Millennium provide that education as well for the community.
Right now, I started kind of counting as I go around the city, and we have very few, in a 2-block span, five blue containers being used for recycling. I get numerous calls a week on recycling. The number one complaint is they're not picking anything up. Even the things that are in their contract that they are supposed to be picking up, they're not picking up. Because I'm guessing because they're not having a market for it. I don't know that for a fact, but the bottom line is it's not getting done. And they're contracted for it either way, so they should be picking it up.
And I'll address that. In the 20-plus years that we've recycled, they've picked up everything that I've had every week. I've never had an issue with it. I understand there are issues with people getting a new bin or them leaving things, the wind blowing materials, but those are enforcement issues, not recycling issues. Those are a contractor not living up to the agreement that we made them sign. Has nothing to do with,
That is true.
with the material being recycled or the amount of material being recycled. The issue I have with the city doing this and with our current contract, and I believe it's item 14 under the current contract, whoever got the RFP, and it's dependable at this point, is required to go to the commercial accounts, required by our contract to talk to the commercial accounts to talk to them about getting their recycle. They're not required. They can do it for free. They can do it for a fee. They can do it for how much ever they can get, but they are required to go to those commercial accounts. And approximately, and I'm going to use approximate numbers here, it costs us $300,000 a year. We're approximately recycling 1,200 tons, of which 800 tons are commercial. 800 of the 1,200 are commercial for that $300,000. With this program, we're saying the city's not going to talk to any of the commercial accounts. We'll try and do partnerships and other things, so the commercial accounts will pay somebody, not the city, but the city is saying it will still cost $300,000, and we're just going to pick up single stream from houses, okay? We have 26% participation rate today, and that's gone up 6% in the last 13 years. This is all documentation that was presented. So now we're going to have $300,000, and we're going to pick up 400 tons approximately. And if we double it, double participation and double tonnage, because participation doubling doesn't mean tonnage doubles. If we double it to 800, now we're going to pay $300,000 and only pick up 800 tons. And today we pay $300,000 and pick up 1,200. If the commercial material is not picked up by somebody, and we have no guarantee in any of this program that it's going to be, that material will go to the landfill. So instead of diverting 1,200 tons to the landfill, we're going to divert less than 1,200 tons to the landfill. And I don't think that's what we want to do. So I will be voting against this because either there's information I don't have, or the economics certainly don't work. We're going to have to invest $1 million of city money in order to buy trucks and refurbish the facility, transfer material back, and then the material we pick up, we're going to have to pay somebody else to dispose of. Today, we don't do any of that. Now, if we have an issue with who we have doing that, that's an enforcement issue with a contract. That's not a recycling issue. The material that does get picked up is getting recycled. And it's getting recycled at $220 per ton. And we're asking it possibly to go up to $400 or $600 per ton. And we're leaving all the commercial accounts out with the city's proposal. Now we say, yep, we're going to work with people and partner with people and do those things, but there's no guarantee and there's nothing written in the program that any of that commercial material is going to be recycled.
Our discussions with both Petrick and Meadham have brought up the commercial, and they are both.
And will they do it for free?
They will do,
Because we're getting it picked
we
up
don't
right
know-
now.
we-
The city is getting it picked up right now.
we don't know
for
that
the
it would
total
be
amount.
free, but we would work with them, and they are more than anxious to work with us on getting it picked up.
I agree, but I do not think you're going to get it for the $225 per ton that's being done today.
So maybe Kevin could answer this a little bit more about how Dependable actually tracks the commercial. I know it goes across the scale, but Kevin, do you know how that's tracked, and are all those accounts paid for, or is Dependable picking up commercial accounts for free?
That would be a question for Dependable, because we don't have any idea if they charge customers. Some they may charge, some they may not. We don't know that. That's not really something we track. They're not gonna tell us if they're charging Muth Electric and next door by Pitts or something, if they're charging Pitts. I can't answer that, to be honest with you. I'm assuming they charge some, but I don't know.
I do know Petrick also picks up some of the commercial businesses right now. They would continue to do so.
But, and I agree, but that's not in the 800 tons that we're estimating here. So that's above and beyond and does not go into the cost accounting then.
Yeah. Okay, so just talking about as a personal resident.
Give us your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Brian Patrick. I'm a associate professor of biology at Dakota Wesleyan University and a Mitchell resident. At my personal residence, I routinely have recycling left behind. So, and part of it is, for example, we occasionally might accidentally put out green glass, which is not one of the things that's on their list to pick up, and so they would leave that, and that is understandable. However, there's a number of plastics, and they're required by their contract to pick up number 1 and number 2 plastics. And they routinely leave back things that have a number 1 or number 2. I have routinely gone out to ask them, why aren't you taking this? This has a number 1 or a number 2 plastic on it. And my answer is, we don't take that. I was like, but you'll take the pop bottle that also has a number 1 or a number 2 on it. Yes, that we take, but these are the same thing. They're injection plastics that meet a certain grade for their rigidity and the composition, and they're made the same way, but they won't take one and they'll take the other, and it is routinely left behind. Second, 2 years ago when we had this conversation, is that when last time we had this?
3.
3? Is it 3? Mel Olson had asked a question specifically of Dependable Recycling. What exactly do you take? And they gave us a list of 4 items. Everything else they will take, and then they will take the rest of it to the landfill for us. So that way I just got rid of some of the customer service issues. Because there were people complaining that they weren't taking things. So I decided to take everything and then put the rest of it in the landfill for us. Those 4 things were aluminum, glass because the city made them, cardboard, and newsprint. And since then, they have added chipboard, which is the stuff that your cereal box is made out of. That means that your junk mail, they take it, they put it in a separate bin right there on their truck. And this is my understanding. I understand the markets may come and go. So there may be certain points where they take certain ones and they don't take others. But they would take that, collect it all, and take it to the landfill. So they may be collecting 400 tons from the city or from the residents. But I don't think that's 400 tons that's getting recycled. Because a significant part of what I put out is not meeting one of those 4 or 5 items that they take. Second, working for Dakota Wesleyan University, we have been trying for a decade to get them to come to our campus. And they repeatedly throw up roadblocks for why they won't do it, why they can't do it. Things have to be done in a specific way. So we try to do that, and then another roadblock is thrown up. So to the best of my knowledge, as somebody who's worked on this for 10 years for Dakota Wesleyan University, they have not wanted to work with us. And third, and this will be the final point I have to make, my understanding from talking with Kyle and the others in the department is that Medema and Petrick are indeed willing, and they have talked to them, to work with some of the commercials to do this so that we can actually get that recycling done at some of these larger places. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, did you have any questions for me on that? Okay, thank you.
I'll comment.
Sure.
And so this doesn't guarantee that any of that will happen either. And this doesn't guarantee that material won't be taken to Millennium and not sent to a landfill.
My understanding in
Now, they'll tell you how much they recycle and how much is sent, but market forces change, materials change. There's nothing that guarantees that.
I'm going to let the person from Millennial
Yep,
back me up on this, but my understanding is that even if the market changes, then they would actually store at least some of that material they could store and then go ahead and send back out. My understanding is Dependable does not do that for 2 reasons: lack of facility, lack of desire. I'll let them address what you just said. Thank you.
Shannon Dwyer from Millennium Recycling. We don't turn material away if we've contracted with it. All right?
And we're not talking about turning material away.
We
We're
don't
talking
we
about,
don't landfill material either if we tell you we're recycling it. There's a responsibility factor here, and we do
Yep.
not do that.
and
Now,
you can guarantee us that.
as long as
We
there
can
are
put that
markets
in
for
the
it,
quote.
yes, you can. All right?
And then how do we monitor or audit that?
You are free to come and go from our facilities as you wish, and you can also, that, it can be audited. We do track that. I don't understand what makes you think that that wouldn't happen at our facility.
Because you'll get material that isn't recyclable.
We certainly do. We get
Yeah.
garbage. We do get garbage.
And
from the
so where does that
recycling.
go?
Where, the garbage goes back in the garbage.
Well,
When it's
that,
garbage.
my point's made then, thank you.
Oh, okay. I guess. All right. Any other questions at all?
Just for clarification, when we did talk to Petrick, they also contract with Millennium. I assume that they are not in the business to not make money. They have a contract with them for $35 a ton too. And if we were going to work with Petrick and meet them up, we would be comparable with tipping fees to make it profitable for them as well. We would be comparable. Hopefully, they would utilize our transfer station to move that material. In cases where they couldn't, I'm sure they would still go with Millennium, but if we got a contract with Millennium for $35 a ton, it makes sense to come to our tipping station.
Kyle, maybe talk a little bit about the container itself. What would be the responsibility of the homeowner? If they don't want a container, do we just drop one off? Can you kind of go into that a little bit and explain what you're proposing?
Oh, there it is up there. That's the container. I think we can be flexible. You know, initially we had started out with the capital costs of a 90-gallon container. I think we could still go with a majority of that. I know that there are some concerns with having a 90-gallon container in your house or in your garage and storing that. We could go to 60. We've talked with the supplier. They can provide 60-gallon containers as well. But the container is, I think, much better for this environment. It's got a lid just like the trash container does. It's got the wheels to roll out. So I believe it's a good program. And again, if we initially rolled this out with the 90 gallons and residents were concerned and said, could we get a 60-gallon, we could work with the residents.
Kyle, what is the size of the blue bins? How many gallons does that hold?
That's a good question.
Because I'm thinking, I fill my bin half to 3/4 every week. Now, I'm guessing if I've got the container that's 4 or 5 times that big, I don't need to put out anything but once a month. And I don't want to keep that in my garage for 6 weeks until it gets full.
And I think initially we wanted to start the operating program by collecting every other week with the trash. When you put your trash out, you would put your recycling container out every other week. So you're storing a little bit more, but as the program develops and there's more participation, we might be able to change that as well, where more people are recycling more than their trash. Again, I think it's a program that can be flexible. The 90-gallon is what's provided in many of the other communities as well. Many of them don't even offer the 60-gallon or for that matter, for trash, don't offer the options.
Did I hear you say trash might go to every other week?
No.
Trash be every week. Recycling.
We may have to go to every week with recycling.
Kyle, if this happens and we do this, what will our lifespan of our cells be if you're trying to increase it from 26% now to 50%? How much more lifespan will we get out of our new cell that we opened up?
You know, I think it varies. We're looking at 5 years, 10 years on each cell. And Kevin could probably talk to that as well, the tonnage that would come across the scales at the landfill. Kevin, what do you think we could see for extending the life cycle of a cell when we take into account maybe 2,400 tons or?
We really haven't looked that far in advance. I mean, as far as, because each set of cells, as you start on the outside, they're designed to be 4.5, maybe 5, up to 5.5 years. As you work to a middle, those cells are actually made to be like 12.5 years. So it's kind of really hard until a guy starts seeing the numbers. I mean, you can, I guess, theoretically put some numbers in there and kind of see where you're going to be. Sure. But until you actually see what the recyclables are going to do, it's kind of hard to say.
Very good. You may as well stay up here in case you get another question.
I just wanted to address the size of the bin, if I may. Again, Brian Patrick. We put out 2 of those blue recycling bins on a weekly basis in a 4-person home. That's my wife, myself, 15-year-old, and currently a 19-year-old. And in fact, we still put those out when my daughter's off at college. So we put out 2 of those bins for just 3 people. I think a lot of that has to do with just education. And please don't misunderstand this statement. That could sound rather pointed. But I mean that most people don't know what's actually recyclable. I think if we ask people in here, other than what I had already just listed, what's recyclable, what's not recyclable, we'd hear a lot of confusion. And I think that's been a lot of the problem with our current system, is that there's been a lack of education and a lack of communication. I think the city taking this over and partnering with people like Dakota Wesleyan and Millennium Recycling, who also has an outreach component to them, can actually help just increase that organically. And actually, you might find yourself saying, even though I don't know how many live in your particular household, but I think even if it were just my wife and I, we would be still filling up at least one of those bins every single week. So the regular blue bin, I think it's probably about, 20, 25 gallon is probably would be my estimate on that. So I think that most people, if they have a better idea of what exactly is recycling, I think if they get better customer service, which I think the city would actually be able to offer, you actually get people who can pick up the phone and answer it during a regular time of day. You can get regular information out. You can start that education starting in one of our plans through Dakota Wesleyan is getting that into the local middle school and elementary schools. And getting, we have education program at DWU and trying to incorporate that in and getting people out for that. Our biology club is interested in getting out and talking to these schools. And then, of course, if you start moving out to the areas beyond Mitchell, which I think is the ultimate plan, is to take this into a larger base, then I think that you'll see that you yourself would actually find yourself recycling more when you know more about what you can get and you understand what you're throwing away that could be recyclable and what's not recyclable. And then just to answer what Steve said earlier, Steve, garbage is garbage. We're talking about recycling. Sometimes garbage accidentally makes it in. To say that made your point doesn't, I don't understand the connection there. Could you please clarify?
Yeah, and I'll reference the Waste Management Baltimore study of when they went to single stream recycling. They had to shut down the center because everybody just threw garbage in.
Oh, okay, I understand. So again, that
So,
goes to,
and again,
yeah.
the volume increase based on, say, we go from 26% to 52%, we might double the amount of garbage that we're putting in recycling. And that goes to the landfill. It's not going to go anyplace else.
No, okay, and I understand what you mean. That's a much clerer statement. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And
And that's again where I think
you-
the education would become
Right,
important.
and you can check Waste Management's website.
Yep.
Huge facility, hundreds of thousands of tons, and didn't work.
No,
And a lot of the issue in that article in their information is just what you're talking about, is information and knowledge and training of what can be recycled and how to recycle it. The other part is, don't buy materials that can't be recycled. The best house on the block might have a blue bin with only one thing in it, because everything else they bought is consumed.
Sure.
So,
And people who are conscious of that's fine, but
not necessarily the most amount of material in the bin
But I'll point out-
shows good recycling.
I'll point out
That
two
might
things.
be a bad consumer buying things that are packaged wrong.
Okay, on that note, then I'll point out 3 things. First, Yankton has been doing this successfully. They had that increase, and to the best of my knowledge, they have not increased the amount of trash that they're putting out going into that facility through the exact same facility. Second, you assume everybody can afford to buy that material. I'm sorry, when you start buying some of that material, some of that stuff can get expensive, and there are people in Mitchell who can't necessarily afford that. And third, we live in Mitchell. We don't necessarily have access to all of that stuff. our water bottles aren't always coming in something other than plastic. And yes, I know
See-
you can fill up
see,
containers, but that's part of the
We,
problem.
we
of
could
where
be
we
New
live.
Hampshire and you can't buy water in bottles.
And I would love that.
Yeah,
I would-
so-
honestly, I
so-
would love that.
so
I'd
would
love
I.
to get rid of straws. I'd love to get rid of plastic bags, et cetera. But we're not there yet, and I dare you as a city council member to try to pass that in the state of South Dakota, because it will not pass and you will not be reelected if you try that. At least if you try to do it all at once. It's the kind of thing you'd have to stage in. These are the small changes we have to make as a community as a whole. And this is one of the steps forward that we can make that I think would help with that.
And all of these education things and all of those other things could be done without the city running it.
The city wouldn't be running the education.
The city, this is proposal for the city to run this.
The
Spend a-
recycling is proposed for the city to run it.
For the city to run it. Spend $1 million that we don't have. That's
Well,
going
you're
to take,
spending that same amount, now, hold on now.
we're not spending that same money now.
How much are we spending
yes, we
currently on
are.
dependable
We're
recycling?
No, we're spending $285,000.
And when the contract comes up for renewal, it makes you think they're not going to ask for an increase.
Sure they might.
So 300,000
But-
times
but-
3 is
So we're talking-
900,000.
But it would be an RFP to anybody out there that wants to do it, and we can put whatever requirements in that RFP that you want.
And how are you going to regulate it? Do you currently go and regulate and see what they're recycling right now? Because that was the same question you asked her.
Yes, it's in the current contract, yes.
It's in the
They-
contract,
they are
but do you
sup-
do it?
That's a mayor and department head issue, not a city council issue.
Right now, we can't control it because they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And we're trying to get a handle on that. And this is a way I see as being able to do that. And if you want, come up here if you want to talk.
Before we go to that, we did talk to the the private companies that do recycling and trash, and they were in favor of the city municipal program. This isn't Sioux Falls where we have 17 different companies that are going to answer this RFP. That's the reality. $300,000 a year for 3 years is $1 million.
Amanda Nava, I live on West 10th. Every week, I've got at least one thing that is recyclable that they drop and they do not pick up. Some of which are broken bottles that they drop and break and don't pick up. I have 4 kids, soon to be hopefully running a daycare. That is a big concern for me. With my youngest is 3. He's still learning what to play with and what not to play with, and when it comes to sharp objects. So how are we going to fix that? I've called them. I've talked to them personally. I've written letters and have gotten, we'll work on it, and have had no success.
You're right. And part of it is educating people on what they take. And it's tough to educate people when they leave things that they're supposed to be picking up. I had a lady call me that lives out in the northwest corner of town. She literally washes every can and every glass jar and sets them out in different bags along with papers separated, and they don't pick any of it up. So she went out and asked them, why aren't you picking this stuff up? And they said, well, we don't pick that up.
I get it, you have to talk to my boss. And I've talked to them many, many times. I've even contacted you a few times, and you've given me their number, and I love what you're doing, but I'm tired of getting the runaround.
So are a lot of people.
I mean, I'm paying for it, I use it. Our bins are overflowing, plus a empty Rubbermaid container. There's 6 of us in our house, so I'm putting stuff out at least every week. And I just want them to pick up what they drop, or at least have a broom and a dustpan to sweep up the garbage or the glass.
Thank you. Did you want to speak?
I did.
Sorry.
Well, come on up.
Thanks. I'm Ryan Van Zee, Director of the Kelly Center for Entrepreneurship at Dakota Wesleyan University. I'm on the for-profit side. The non-profit side I have a lot of respect for, but that's not what I deal with. We only really deal with profit. So when I was interested in hearing about how this is working, I had really one question. This trash, this recyclable stuff, while it helps the environment, all that, that's great. Is this stuff valuable? And they're like, yeah, this is valuable. It's like, are we talking tens of dollars, hundreds of dollars? They're like, no, several $100s a pallet. And in my world of entrepreneurship, it's a matter of if you can sell something. And there's this old saying that if you can sell a widget for $1, how many widgets did you sell? As many as you can get your hands on. So once we know that this material, this recyclable material has value, then it's just sort of a foot race to see how much of this we can get. So the commercial environment, if it has value, which it does and has possible return on investment, we're going to want to get our hands on as much of this stuff as possible. And then it's simply a matter of economics. Petrick, Miedema, once you have a profitable product, getting vendors to service a positive ROI is really a simple matter of economics. And do these businesses, along with the city, want to generate additional revenues? And if it's sitting there, why not pick it up?
Okay, Ryan, do you realize that this proposal is that the city wants to spend the money, pick the material up, but then we have to pay somebody to take it from us? They're not paying us for the material. We're paying them per ton to take it.
Yes, to develop the model, that's right.
No, not to develop the model. So if we get 1,000 tons, we pay them $35 a ton. If we get 2,000 tons, we pay them $35 a ton. We pay $35 a ton for every, so the more we pick up, the more we pay.
And that's in relationship to saving the landfill, is it not?
Right now we have, if you use the 1,200.
That's just where I wanted to stop, because the idea is.
No, it doesn't.
There is a trade-off.
Dollar-wise, it does not save the landfill. Not on a dollar-wise.
But there is less material going into landfill.
Less material going into the landfill.
Okay. That was my point.
But that doesn't necessarily make it profitable. Because to expand the landfill in our situation, and we're only diverting less than 4.5% of the total material to the landfill. In our situation, the landfill's already sited and permitted. We don't have to do it again. And making a new cell, we will not spend as much making that new cell 1 or 2 years early as we would paying $35 a ton, sending it to Millennium.
Okay. So as we go through this process with Millennial, aren't we gathering information on how profitable this product would possibly be?
Millennium's gathering that information on how profitable it is.
Yeah, so.
We don't see any of their profit margins.
But this is open to us, is it not?
It is open to you.
Yeah.
So we get to see what's going on so we can gather the data so that we can build the case that if this doesn't work for the city, we let it alone. But if it works better for the city, then we have data-driven options on how this might work a little bit better, because we're increasing the amount of recyclability that we have. And until we gain an economies of scale, I don't think we have a full picture of what's going on. And that is my point.
Thank you.
This is Shannon again. I just want to make a point about the profitability that you're talking about. Recycling is a service, okay? And that's exactly what it is. Now, it's driven by markets, and as farmers know, your markets don't always pay, okay? There are bad years, like this year. Recycling runs the same way. When you've got a high market of $30 a ton for cardboard, and that's after it's baled and in truckload quantity, I can tell you right now, no recycler is taking any funds from you as a rebate, okay? It costs you more than that just to process it. So that conversation, I'm sorry, what? I mean, that's exactly how this works. And all of those numbers would be public to you. The markets are public to you. Those are markets, okay? But costs go behind that just like any other business. So I want you to understand that the big picture is not necessarily profitability and the amount of money that a facility is going to, or an entity is going to get back. It's a service that you're paying for. And just like you're paying a garbage service, you're going to pay for recycling to some degree. And those rebates, when there's value back, when those markets are high again, you're going to see those benefits as well. And that can be written in your RFP as well. Okay, and I just wanted to clarify that because it's not necessarily something where somebody's making money and nobody knows about it. All of our information, whatever the city, if you decide to contract with us, all of our information is available fully. We don't hide any of that information. Okay, so, and I just wanted to make that clear that that's where the profitability lies. Okay.
I myself agree something has to be done because
I've recycled my whole life, and I'm throwing more recyclable stuff in my trash can than in my recycling bin, because in the last year, they haven't taken it. I mean, pizza boxes or whatever, I mean, I've been a recycling guy for many years, and I'm throwing more, in, like I said, it's going to the landfill than it is recycling, because they don't take it. And they have in the past, in the last year, it's just gotten bad out my way anyway. I don't know what it is around other people's places, but I'm throwing it in the garbage.
If I make one last comment on that particular note, just to append what I had said earlier, we put out those 2 bins, we put out 1 bag of trash a week. You're talking about how you could leave your recycling up at your house for 3 weeks. I could too, and it would just fill up that 90-gallon. That's how much we recycle. So, or at least how much we're putting out for recycling, I should say. So I think that this is something that could be successful. I'll go back to also this being a service. Steve, you're talking about how it may take 1 to 2 years off of each cell. How many cells have we got? Each time we do that, we start taking life off the landfill. And sure, we could kick that road 80 years down the road, but that's still something that's going to have to be dealt with 80 years down the road. And I know that seems like a long time. That's literally a lifetime away for a lot of people. But that's something that we have to keep in mind. We can't do this for our future selves. We have to start doing this stuff now. Moreover, a lot of this trash ends up going out to other places. If we don't have it going into the landfill, people are doing other things. We need to get that consciousness, that idea going into people's minds. There are leachates coming from those plastic bags that have been shown to soften the shells of lobsters out on the coast, and now it's being shown to do that with crayfish here in the Midwest. Those coming from the plastics that are leaching in. There are microplastics that are working their way up through the environment, and we are finding out now that we are eating them on a very regular basis, making it all the way into our cattle from the water. So there's a number of ideas here that we have to address. It's more than just about the dollars and cents of this, which I think end up, as far as I can tell, coming out fairly even on this. There is a service to this. We could privatize trash completely, but then we would have literally no control over what people are picking up. We'd have no idea. If we wanted to complain, I could call the mayor and he'd be like, I don't know, you got to talk to the contractor. That's what he has to do right now for Medina and Petrick in those particular instances. He's like, well, you have to talk to your individual person. I'd like to be able to talk to somebody specifically about my recycling and not get stonewalled answers. And that's what we're getting with our current company. And when we looked at a different company last time, it looked to me like we weren't going to get anything different. At least this time we're looking to get something different that has a positive move forward. That's just my opinion on that. And Steve, I do respect your perspective on this. I honestly do. We just have a difference of opinion on this, and I'm hoping that my side comes out just like you're hoping your side comes out on this, and we'll see where this all lies at the end of the day. But I think that this will be a positive move for the city of Mitchell, and you also have to think about how that'll impact people coming here. When we first got here, we found out how great they have recycling, and then we found out how bad it was. And we talked to people around town, and it spreads outside of the city of Mitchell. People talk about that to each other, and it's one of those amenities that you just get. This is like the argument we had about the indoor pool. People said we don't need an indoor pool, and there's still a lot of people out there who have a very, very valid opinion on that, who say that this is not something we need. You're right, we didn't need it, but it is an amenity that the city has that has made it a more positive environment, particularly for the younger families that we're looking to attract to come to the city. And I think this is one more of those things that could help with that. Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to interject here that I would say that recycling is one of those issues that I hear from people all the time. I don't know that it's the most complained about issue, but it is right up there at the top. And I think that we just really owe it to our community to at least attempt to improve those services. And to that end, I would like to move approval of the City of Mitchell Single Stream Recycling Program.
Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Charks. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sabers. Is there any further discussion on that?
I want to make just a couple comments. Number one, if we're going to vote in favor of this, I'm not going to vote for it unless we keep it at the $4, because I think we owe it to the community to at least give it a try at the same cost.
We're not proposing any raise in increase.
Okay, there was $5 in here, but I didn't know.
That was
Just the
an
presentation.
example of a payback for you. We're not advocating changing it.
Okay.
It was just so you had information on what paid back at $4, what paid back at $5.
Okay.
Is that not correct, Mr. Croce?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Is more for council information.
All right, sounds good. The second thing is we've talked about, as we teach our young children the benefits of recycling, but yet our facilities with the city do not have the ability to recycle. So I think that's something that we have to be better at. And I know Mr. Croce said that that's something in the future that we're going to be taking a look at. And then the other thing is, actually two more. Number one, there will be people out there, I'll guarantee you, because I've already had the comments. I will try it at 60, but I'm not doing a 90. I mean, it's just, and maybe they'll grow into a 90, but I really feel that we at least have to give that an option for people to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did call the suppliers as well, and so they'll keep the price down at what our estimate would be if we did get a certain percentage of the 60-gallon containers.
Okay. And then finally, as we've kind of discussed a little bit in the past, I still believe there's some validity of having a drop-off site included here too, because if people just want to do their own without a container again, give them the ability to at least drop it off. So I think those points are going to be important as if this gets voted in and we roll it out to the community.
Kyle, how does this get paid? We didn't go through that.
So the outline has the estimated costs, and we do have a revenue per single-family resident on the $4.
Right.
So initially, we would utilize that revenue stream for the rest of the investment. We would work with District 3 and the state funds, and we would work with the sanitation enterprise fund.
So this would get at the $4 what we're paying now per month, but in 7 years, we'd have it paid for.
That's correct.
Okay.
Is 30% the largest amount of the grant? Do you know, Kyle? Is that the top end?
Believe me, I will try and get more than 30%. I use that number because that's what we had the meeting with District 3, and that's what Yankton had in 2017. So I wanted to use an accurate number. But, we would try to utilize state bid for equipment to get that price down. And if we could get additional funds through grants, we're definitely going to look at that if council feels favorable about this proposal.
But you're comfortable with at least 30?
I am comfortable with 30%. That's an accurate number that Yankton got. Kevin?
That's very typical, and that's what District 3 is telling us.
Doesn't mean we won't ask for 100%, but
This is just a one-time grant. There's nothing else coming down the road.
And I believe that that's through the state grant, right, Kevin? So there might be the opportunity to look at other additional grants available, but we're talking about the state grant that most cities have used for capital purchases.
And one other thing that I think is very important is we've got budget in here of hiring 2 individuals, but those individuals will be specifically identified, as Mr. Croce said, just for recycling. So down the road, if another council decides not to do any more recycling, those 2 jobs would be eliminated.
we are also looking at trying to automate all of our garbage collection, in which case there's 2 individuals that are involved in that, which would switch those 2 positions to this. We're trying to make it a net zero.
I assume, it's agreed upon that the way we're recycling is not working. Too many customer complaints, it's just not working. And I assume that we've looked at any private company and they're not interested in taking on the job of recycling, correct? To the degree that you're proposing, Kyle.
We did talk to Miedema, and they were very much in favor of the city collecting the single-family stream. We talked to Petrick. They were interested in the collection on single-family, but they realized that it's a large investment as well. Just the cans alone, we're quoting almost $500,000. And to get underway by January, I don't know if they would have that capability. Again, it would be one private company that may be interested versus other communities where they have additional private firms.
Needham felt that we weren't big enough to go to completely private, is my understanding in our meeting.
And I would say-
We're not a Sioux Falls. We don't have the population base to be able to get a contractor to come in here and do all the garbage as an individual corporation or whatever, and make money at it.
And the last time
Yes.
the last time this agreement was open would have been, as you said earlier, 3 years ago. At that point, the city received 2 bids, and it was from Dependable and Petrick. So I think that kind of gives you at least a gauge on what the interest level might have been.
Now, Needham is very interested in working to get businesses to recycle with us, as is Petrick. So they're on board. I think Needham's words were, it's about time the city started doing this. It makes sense. We have the equipment. It makes sense for us to be the ones getting involved in it. We're just not big enough to be all private garbage haulers in this city.
Question. So on multi-dwelling units, do we have apartments that we charge a recycling fee?
I believe we do, and that's part of the program.
How are they, so, and basically they can't recycle because they can't, if I put my blue bin in the hallway, Dependable's not going to come pick it up.
And so the discussions that we had with the private companies were that the city does not want to do multi-family dwellings. We may want to do twin homes, maybe up to 4plexes, but the reality is we would not want to charge those people, and we would want a private company to take that as a
And
commercial
they're willing
account.
to do that.
Okay, so this would mean the city's going to change its billing system to not bill those people for recycling?
We would look towards doing all the single family.
So
You're correct, Steve. That the
Yes.
city is
Yes.
looking,
the numbers of
would be single-family dwellings or
just
duplexes,
single-family
quadplexes.
homes.
Correct. No apartments.
And can you scroll down then on the, are your numbers the same then for how many single-family only non-apartment pickups do we have? You have 6,500 accounts, but is that all accounts? Is that everybody that gets charged recycling?
We currently have approximately 5,400 water billing accounts. I do know that.
So 6,500 isn't a correct number. That's how many people, everybody gets charged for recycling today, everybody. Whether they can recycle or not, is my understanding.
Just to touch on Michelle's thing, that's actual water billing.
I'm not interested in water billing. How many people are being charged for recycling?
That's how they bill. is
That,
for water.
it's, but you might only have one water service for a 4plex, but the 4 people in the 4plex are paying for, you know.
Recycle.
Yep.
Okay, you might have one water service going into a 50-unit apartment complex. 50 people are paying, but there's only one water service. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but how many multi-dwelling units have multiple water services?
Very few.
Very few isn't a number. I'm
Well,
I'm looking for actual numbers.
I don't have water information. I don't.
We need to get the water guy here. So what she's
Okay,
saying is there's 5,400 billed water bills,
5,400 billed water.
which get billed recycling as well.
And some do have multiple recycling charges on those bills.
I guess, to me, it's just and we talk that it's a service and it becomes a fairness issue. We're charging people to recycle and we don't allow them to recycle. We don't even give them the opportunity. And I don't see how that's fair.
And we are working on making some adjustments to that. So I think in the future you will find it to be more fair, Steve. Okay? Anybody else wish to address this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay. 6-1, motion carries. Action to approve agreement A 2019-29 29, infrastructure design for water model design project 2019-45. Mr. Croce?
Mr. Mayor and Council, so this is a hydraulic model for the city's water distribution system. We've got a city engineer on staff as well, and they believe that this hydraulic model will provide a more accurate understanding of the distribution system, and we will actually retain ownership of that model to be able to create different situations and maybe storage capacity in different locations for water towers. So this was a proposal that we felt was a good investment for the city to be able to have that hydraulic model assistance through infrastructure design and then retain that model as well.
Kyle, is this the quote was 65,800 or?
It's 68,500? Yes,
68,500?
yes, sir.
Would that, is this something that you're proposing to put in next year's budget, or how are we going to pay for that? Or is that coming out of this year's budget?
It does come out of this year's budget. We have the funds this year for that, and it's not something that we would have or request yearly.
It's already budgeted for this year.
It was budgeted in 2000?
Yep, you can see the line that it's in right
Yes.
there. It's in professional fees in the water distribution account.
That's
I
correct.
see, okay.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion?
Yeah, what additional information will this give us above and beyond what the SPN study did from 2014-15?
So I'll let infrastructure and Joe talk to that, but we'll be able to utilize the information that we have from our meters to actually input into that model, so it's not a,
So this will actually create a model that we'll be able to have and use?
yes.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion?
Any idea on how long, well, that's just, how long that model will be valid? Yeah, he's our guy now.
Joe Schrader, city engineer. It's my understanding that that model can be updated at any time with our meter data.
So if we contract with somebody else for water, plus do other things, we can update and use the model, and there might be a cost to update it at some point?
Since we retain the model, actually, if we decide to go with another consultant, say, now we have that right to pass that on to the other consultant.
Okay.
So before you were going to, obviously, probably SPN that had that original model, if
Right.
that's correct. Yeah.
Correct. We're switching programs, basically.
Yeah, the one was it 2014, 15, whatever year that was done, they made the model and showed all the water tower balances, the closed loops,
Sure.
all of that information. I just don't want it to have that created again and make it be static, because what good is that versus 3 years ago? Probably not much. But if we're getting something that can be used forward, because we're going to probably be making some water decisions in the next 4 to 8 years, 10 years, it'd be nice to have something that we could use.
And owning the model would be able to have us have the time to run those situations as well, and those different parameters. If we put a water tower in different locations, how that would affect the rest of the distribution system. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Action to approve Agreement 8 2019-30 revised 301 North Main Settlement Agreement. Mr. Johnson, you want us to table this one, correct?
Yeah, so if there's anybody that can make a motion that can be heard over the entire groans of the city of Mitchell, I'll ask that somebody table this until I can bring it back.
Make a motion to table.
And I'll just have to say that I'll bring it back as soon as I can. There's a couple more things that we need to address that came up late today, so.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Allen. Discussion. Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Did you want to speak to it?
Well, I wanted to speak on the
That's it. Come on up.
Well, I'm Diane Moody. My husband and I own Moody's Westernwear, which has got the common wall with the building they're gonna tear down, supposedly. So I didn't quite understand the agreement you were trying to get. Is it, you were having Mr. Fennell was going to hire the contractor, correct?
Correct.
And the city was going to pay for it, and then he was going to set up a payment plan or a judgment against him and pay you back? Was that their deal?
Yeah, he'd be consenting to a judgment.
Well, what was the estimate you guys had before a couple times on what that was going to cost?
Never got an actual estimate, between $500,000 and $750,000.
Well, you know, you all know as well as I do, that that man will never pay that back in his lifetime or any of ours. You know what I'm saying? So now you're going to do this because he's hiring the contractor. You're not liable for anything that happens to our store, correct?
I can't comment on that.
Well, I think we have the right to know what's going on. I read it in the paper. My customers are like, what's going to happen to you? Well, I don't know what's going to happen to us because evidently the city doesn't care whether we have a business or not because they kind of just did all this. I mean, it really affects us. We can't be in that building when they're knocking the building down. We have a common wall. It probably isn't going to stand. So if he hires a contractor, he's got to be bonded, he's got to have insurance, he's going to be approved by you guys.
He would have to have a contractor, they would have to be bonded, they would have to be insured. So if your building fell in, that insurance would obviously.
Right. How, I mean, yeah, I don't know. You really think he's going to find one that he's going to be able to hire?
A contractor?
Yeah. What if he can't find one?
I'm sure he'll find one. You know, that's up to him. I can't, I'd like to say, hey, I can see what's going to happen here and,
Right.
you know, nothing will happen to you, but I can't. I mean,
I know.
I don't own the building. He owns the building. He's got a responsibility. We're trying to hold his feet to the fire on it. That's our goal. And this is
Yeah, I
one
get
way
that, I guess,
we
but-
found that we can do that.
But
Do we like it? It's not the best
No.
scenario we could find.
Yeah, I
But
realize
it's
that.
about the only answer we can find.
Well, yeah, but like I said, he has nothing, and he's never going to pay the city back. It's just the real truth. You know that.
I guess
So
the
they-
bottom line on that is that we're not going to get anything better through the court system if we tried anything else.
Right, because he has nothing to get. So you might as well just say you're going to end up paying the bill. You know, I mean, I don't know why you're saying that it's going to happen. He has nothing. What's
Ma'am,
going to
that's-
happen is
that's
we're
what
going
the
to lose
agreement
our
says.
business. You know, we've been open 20-some years. Brought a lot of people to this town that don't come, they come to our store and then they go other places. There's lots of towns that have Walmarts too, but they like to come to Mitchell. We bring in people from 2 to 3 hours away. And I felt like we got hit in the face Friday when I read that in the paper. I thought, well, like, it concerns us a little bit. We have the right to know what's going on a little bit here. What if he hires a contractor and says, we're going to tear that building down in 2 days? What are we supposed to do? I mean, really? Is that fair?
And that wouldn't be a possible scenario. Even if he went and hired a contractor tomorrow, that contractor would still have to bring in and request demolition permits and all of that. It's just,
But it could happen within a couple of weeks if he found a contractor. You know how
can't
long
tell you
it'll
the
take me to
timeframe.
move all my stuff out of that building? And find a place to go? I mean, I just asked for a little courtesy that, we have the right to know. I mean, I'm trying to run a business.
And we're not trying to hide anything from you.
I
But
just-
I mean, we have to find a way to hold him to be responsible. This is a way that we can do that.
Right.
You know, the city can't take everybody's building and demo it for
Well,
them.
I realize that. You made
know,
the mistake
we've been
once.
we've been working on this for a long time, and we're trying to make it to where he's got some responsibility in this game, more so than the city does.
True, but like I said, you can't, you're never going to get any money out of him, so He has nothing to take a judgment against him. He knows it's good enough. He's smart enough to put it in that LLC, so you can't sue him. He don't have any insurance on the building. We've already had to change our insurance company twice. And I guess we just bought the wrong building 20 years ago. I didn't know it had a common wall, we just thought it'd be good for downtown because we bring a lot of people downtown. But pretty
Yes, you
soon there
do.
ain't gonna be any businesses left down there. But I realize the city, you can't keep taking care of all these old buildings, but I feel like you need to step up and make some people fix their buildings.
We're trying to do that.
I know. It does look like a slum. That's where I totally disagreed with the thing where we pay for the fancy sidewalk. Let's worry about the buildings falling down before we worry about the fancy sidewalk. Yeah, sorry, that's just how I feel, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've already voted on that one, so moving to the next. Action to ratify Agreement A 2019-31, Emergency Animal Abuse Response Contract. I'll start this one out by saying that we found a trailer that had a lot of cats in it, and Mr. Coster got a hold of me and said that to try and extricate these cats would be tough with the equipment the city had. Sioux Falls Humane Society is well-equipped to do this kind of work, so therefore we went to them and asked them to participate in extricating the cats. We're still extricating cats. So, Mr. Coster, you got anything else you want to add?
No, other than currently, as of this afternoon, we're still currently have live traps in the house that we're checking. But prior to our meeting, we had removed 43 live cats from that trailer, 2 that were not live, unfortunately. So currently we have 45, and we know there are still cats in the trailer. And without getting into the criminal aspect of it, quite a mess at the trailer.
It's a very big mess.
Yes.
So what we did is we had an agreement on an hourly rate for the Sioux Falls Humane Society as well as what you see in front of you. Is there anything else you want to explain about the agreement, Mr. Coster?
Really nothing more than what you have in front of you. The Humane Society of Sioux Falls is taking care of all the medical bills for those animals. They're dealing with rehousing the ones that are able to be adopted out and making the best judgment for the health and welfare of the animals that may not be in the best of health. They were in various stages of wellness when they were removed from the trailer and still ongoing as we're working.
They had to wear respirators and Tyvek suits to remove the cats.
I have a brother who is employed by HSUS, which is separate, the Humane Society of the United States, which is separate from local humane societies. So he actually had sent me this article and said, do you know these people? He lives in Oregon, so it's kind of a big deal. But he pointed out that if we wanted to contact, if we ever have this kind of a big thing like this, that HSUS also will come in at no charge, and that's what they do. So I just said, should I mention that? And he said, well, sure. I think it's an important thing that you know that is available. Obviously, we have this taken care of with the Sioux Falls Area Humane Society, but for future reference, that is another service that's available.
Okay.
And this contract that you'd be approving doesn't commit us to using them for any specific number of instances. We put it together in response to that last one, operated under it in the hopes that the council would ratify it tonight. But in the future, if there's other options, PD can sure keep those in mind.
Move to approve 2019-31.
Okay, motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. Sharks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2019-50, a plat of Lot D in the North northeast quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 30, Township 103 North, Range 60 West, 5th Prime Meridian, Davis County, South Dakota.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission did hear this plat at their last meeting, and they did recommend approval. This may refresh your memory when we had that rezoning, about a month or so ago. And now basically what they're doing is they're expanding that Lot C to make it D and make it all consistent, so. And I understand there was like a low spot where they can't build a house, and so that's how this all came about. But the rezoning had to come first. And my understanding is the county has already, is already in the process of reviewing it.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2019-51. A plat of Lot 6 of the Tract H Wild Oak Golf Club addition to the city of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, this was presented to the Planning Commission at their last meeting, and they did recommend approval. You can kind of see that it pretty much follows the master plan of the Wild Oak development.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2019-52, authorizing abatement of a nuisance at 518 North Raleigh. This one you wish to be tabled also?
I'll let the council make that determination. I'll give you a little bit of background. This is a file that has been in progress for several years now. You can see that the order to correct was issued back in October 31st, 2017. We didn't find out until about a week or so ago that the property owner actually died back in April of 2017, so before the order was even issued. Certified mail was accepted by his now widow. At the time I submitted this agenda item, I had not heard back from her, but she did contact me by phone after the agenda item was submitted. I kind of explained the situation to her, that the city hasn't heard from anybody on this property. There's been continuing nuisance issues with it, and that the city's goal here would be just to abate the nuisance by demolishing the property there and abating those costs, and assessing those costs to the property itself. Barb indicated that she did not think that she would be able to be here tonight. Doesn't look like she is, but she expressed that she has a number of items in the home that she'd want to get out of there before any demolition took place. And she was also curious about whether she could have a chance to sell the home to somebody else to allow them to fix it up before the city would go in and tear it down. In talking with our Public Works Department, it sounds like they wouldn't be getting around to this project until late fall, probably October, sometime around there. So if the council wants to table this for a little while to see if we can come up with a plan for a possible sale or a timeline on her getting things out of the home, we could do that. Or if you just want to authorize it tonight, as I've said, the actual demolition wouldn't take place until later in October, which does give her a couple of months to make sure she's got everything out of there. And if she does try to sell it in the meantime, we can try to come up with some kind of an agreement to make sure that whoever wants to buy it is going to be accountable for the nuisance conditions. So I'll leave it to the council which way you guys want to go with it, either approving it tonight or tabling it to a later meeting.
She's had 2 years. She's gotten the certified letter 2 years ago that she should have acted on, didn't. Dragged her feet in calling you till after this was on the agenda. Now she wants more time. We've been lenient in the past, and you know, this is something that's,
And-
could go on for a couple more years.
And I agree that it tends to be a slippery slope with nuisance cases. I mean, I'll also add that in this case, the property is still in the deceased owner's name. There's never been a probate action, no personal representative, it's not in her name. So even if they wanted to sell the property, at this point, they've got no ability to.
Justin, has the nuisance officer, have we cleaned that sidewalk or mowed it? Do they have bills from us, or how's that getting paid, or who's doing it?
From what it appears, there's not a whole lot of lawn there, so
Right.
it seems like the neighbors have kind of been taking care of the mowing.
'Cause I see it was mowed today.
Yeah, and that's kind of what our guess is. I don't think that Wade has a lot of outstanding bills or anything that would have been assessed to the property.
Well, I think we should move on with this and keep it moving rather than table it and get back to it again.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Dosher.
And I'll second that, and given the fact that you've opened up the lines of communication, there is going to be time between now and when it actually happens, so I would suggest that you continue to work with them, Justin, but in the meantime, we got to keep moving on these nuisance properties whenever we get the ability to do it.
Okay.
And also for council's information, I don't remember if I put the number in there, but Public Works was estimating the cost for that demolition at around $7,000. It's something that they would handle in-house. It's not something that they'd use an outside contractor for.
Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Second reading of ordinance O 2019-09, an ordinance of the city of Mitchell that changes the zoning district classification of real property legally described as Block 19, Home Park, First Edition, Davidson County, South Dakota, from R4 High Density Residential District to TWC Transportation Warehouse Commercial District.
Not much has changed since the last time you heard this. Again, the planning commission did recommend approval of it, not this last meeting, the meeting prior. And as you can see, there does seem to be a mixture of TWC in that area. And my understanding is the owner wishes to construct a commercial building at some point, and that's what it is. Also, just as a reminder, on the aerial, it doesn't show an alley, but there is an alley that goes through that. That's just an error on the mapping, so
The
there
alley's
is an
not
alley.
vacated?
It is not vacated. That's just an error in the pictometry, so.
Okay, thank you.
Move to place on second reading.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Motion to adopt ordinance O 2019-09, request for public comment, roll call. Motion. Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Charts.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Sabers. Rice. Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Motion carries. First reading of ordinance O 2019-10, an ordinance that changes the zoning district classification of real property legally described as lots 1 and 2, block 24, the north half of vacated alley, original addition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota, from central business, transportation warehouse, and lots 3 through 6, block 24, in the north half of vacated alley, lots 7 through 11 in the south half of vacated alley, block 24, original district, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota, from R2, single-family residential to TWC Transportation Warehouse.
Again, the planning commission did hold a hearing on this request and did recommend approval. I think probably some of this you probably had heard about. This is the Vern Ide property. Again, that map hasn't been updated. That alley is vacated. You guys may recall that you did that a few months ago or what have you. But what this is, in what it appeared what happened is when we transitioned and computerized the zoning map way back when, the blank would have been showing it as R2, and so somehow it didn't get colored in there. I went back and did some extensive look back to see what that property was zoned, And the whole property was all zoned TWC. It was rezoned to TWC back in the 70s. So
When
as you can see.
Coca-Cola was there.
Yeah, it was when Coca-Cola was there, and so what this does is it takes the two R2s, puts them to TWC, and the two central businesses to TWC as well. So it makes it very consistent. This is not changing the two R2s that are within the same block where those two houses are. Correct, thank you. Because they're different, they're not owned by Vernity. So this would just basically, and the reason you probably saw in your material, there's one is like Mitchell Investment and one's Davison Motors. So, but that's in essence is Vernity. Am I paraphrasing? Okay. Yep.
I sit on the planning commission, there is no neighbor
No.
opposition. Like the 110 blocks to the north, all the neighbors are against it, so there wasn't nothing on this one.
Vernity has been kind enough to move everything off there until the zoning
Yeah.
is done. So.
I went in there looking for a car and they're gone.
I bet you can find one.
Yeah, you thought they sold them all already.
It's a kind of an unfortunate situation, but luckily we discovered it, so.
Move the place on first reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right, we are changed item 29 to executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session in accordance with South Dakota codified law.
Motion to go into executive session.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. There will be no action after executive session. somebody over the